Hello, my beautiful human. Welcome back to the She Did It Anyway podcast. I am so excited you're here and even more excited for this episode because in our last couple episodes, I've been talking a lot about this concept of just doing it anyway. I've been talking about it on my Instagram, and there have been so many different situations in my life where I felt like, okay, I just have to do it anyway. And with the fear and, with the lack of resources, and it made me think a little bit about my upbringing and how being an immigrant, having immigrant parents, how that really shaped me into the person that I am today. And I started this conversation on my stories on IG, and I was so blown away by the response, all of the stories that everybody shared with me. And, we talked about work ethics and how, my work ethic now I do believe comes from watching my parents do it anyway, wake up at all hours of the night and run a pizza shop. That was, what they did for the majority of my childhood when they came here from Egypt. So, to back up a little bit about my upbringing. So we came here from Egypt. My mom was a science professor. I actually don't know exactly what my dad did. I think he was like some sort of engineer, but when they came here, going back to school really wasn't an option for them. They went straight into being full-time entrepreneurs. They worked for a little bit with my aunts and uncles, and then they eventually wanted to own their own pizza shop. And so that was like their big goal. And so we really were just in and out of family homes trying to save as much money as possible while they were working. And we, came with a little bit of money. It was definitely a better life than what we had in Egypt, but it was just harder. It was a harder life. And so watching that, and I think it taking a toll, and it was shocking for my parents at like how different lifestyle was in the US, really was ingrained in me. I just looked at things completely different, right? And so watching them wake up super early, work all day, and then go to sleep really late because they're just coming back from work, that to me was the only way I knew what work was, right? And so even now, and how that has shaped me now as an entrepreneur, there's so much guilt around not working those like 20 hours, right? There's so much guilt that comes with it. And I always think back, well, where is this guilt coming from? And I realize it's because my definition of work, my definition of hard work and entrepreneurship, making money, was defined by watching my parents work these crazy hours and be really stressed. Most of the time they weren't, excited to go to work per se. It was just like, oh, I have to go to work. And so that was what was normal to me. When I think more about this upbringing that I had, a lot of the beliefs that I have in terms of money and saving it and not spending it and what's worth it and what's not worth it, a lot of it really comes from the conversations that I had with my family and with my parents. And I always looked at other people, and we as like collective, my mom, my dad, and myself, like looked at other people with money, and we were like, okay, well, when we have this much money, we're going to be so happy. That number always just got a little bit higher and a little bit further and a little bit further. It wasn't until I started working that I realized, okay, well, I have all this money and I'm still really, down and out. And I just feel like I'm spending it poorly. Talking to my therapist, I realized that a lot of the beliefs that I have come from these unintentional actions and conversations. Now, being an immigrant, also, so I'm Coptic Orthodox. And so growing up, we were really, I come from a pretty conservative family and really religious family. And so every Sunday we would go to church, and, my friends were friends from church. They were my cousins' family. Like it wasn't like I was making a lot of friends outside of church. And looking back at that, it's just so funny because coincidentally, I'm still friends with a lot of the people. We just like kind of grew up together and we get each other. But growing up really religiously, I grew up with fear rather than, oh, I'm not going to steal because it's bad. I would think, oh, well, I'm not going to steal because God is watching and something terrible is going to happen to me. Like he's going to punish me, right? I'm going to steal, get in this car and crash. Like it was so extreme. And I always said, I want to raise like God-fearing children. And I realized that I actually don't want to do that. So thinking about my upbringing, and now it's like, well, I don't want them to be scared. I don't want them, even in a relationship, you don't want to not do something because because you're scared. You don't want to do it because you respect and you love and you care for that person rather than scared. I feel like when you have fear of not doing something, sometimes it feels very selfish, like because of the consequences that are going to happen to you rather than thinking about the consequences and the hurt that you can cause someone else, right? I reframed a lot of my thinking around being scared. And even after I had Sebastian, I always felt like there was this shame and fear when it came to religion and God and going back to church. I realized very quickly that it's the opposite. It's all love, right? I'm going into this place for love and for forgiveness and for safety. I think, again, just being a daughter of immigrant parents, I realized that you don't know what you don't know. And so they're just doing the best possible way, best things that they can, like raising me the best possible way that they can. And I have been trying to just redefine some of those lessons and some of those moments and stories and conversations that I've had and really understand, well, are these things that I truly believe in, or are these things that have been ingrained in me since, I was younger? But I would also say that some of the stories that I was getting when it comes to upbringing, I always felt like I wouldn't be the risk taker that I am today. I wouldn't be as forgiving. Again, this is my opinion, but I wouldn't be the risk taker that I am today. I wouldn't be as forgiving. I wouldn't be as relentless and I don't know, just different if I wasn't an immigrant, if I didn't live those experiences. Now, I know you might be listening and being like, well, wait, I didn't live those experiences and I am relentless. And I agree, but it's just like, I just don't know. I understand that you're that way. I don't know how I would be the person I am today if I didn't have that upbringing, if I didn't watch my parents work all crazy hours, if I didn't, remember getting ripped out of our home in Egypt and having to move to the US because it would literally be a safer and better life. Like, I don't know who I would be. And I'm sure I would have experienced different struggles, but those moments specifically have just shaped me into the person that I am today. And I really took that for granted growing up until now, I'm 32 and I'm like, wow, thank God I experienced that because it really does make me who I am today. And so I would love to hear your story and your upbringing, maybe some lessons that you've learned along the way. Like, has your upbringing, even if you're not an immigrant, like, has your upbringing made you the entrepreneur you are today, or made you, the mom and the wife or the partner or the friend that you are today? Did it make you the athlete you are today? What lessons did you learn along the way? What are stories that you're really trying to redefine? Really just trying to rewrite some of the things that have been ingrained in your mind. I would love to know. So DM me. I want to get to know you a little bit more. All right. I love you. Bye. And don't forget, no matter what, she did it anyway.
You did it, Mom.